The plain stretched farther than sight. There was no forest, no rise of rock, only the long, endless sweep of dry grass under a sky the color of old steel. The wind moved through it without direction, carrying dust that clung to fur, to skin, to breath. The sun had gone down, but the light still lingered, a gray-blue glow that made the world look neither day nor night. Shadows had no edges here. They bled into one another until distance itself disappeared. The wolf came from the north. It moved with the tired patience of something that had been walking for days. Its coat was thick with frost near the shoulders, its paws black with soil. The ribs beneath the fur showed faintly when it breathed. The air hung around its muzzle in slow clouds, vanishing almost as soon as they formed. There was no sound but its footsteps. Each one was distinct, a soft press, a low crunch, a pause, then another. No echo followed. The plain swallowed noise whole, as if sound here did not belong. The wolf stopped once, lifting its head. Its ears turned to the wind, but there was nothing in it. No prey, no rival, no scent of water. Only distance. The grass around it bent in long, smooth ripples, then stilled again. The movement was wide, slow, deliberate, not like a breeze, but like the plain itself, breathing once and falling back into silence. The wolf lowered its head and walked on. Its eyes were pale, not bright, not fierce, but cold and steady, reflecting the faint light of the dying sky. The world behind it closed again, step by step, until its trail vanished. There was no path here, no direction, only the pull of the horizon. That thin line of dim blue that never changed, never grew closer. The wolf paused at the crest of a small ridge. Below it, the plain opened wider than before, an ocean of grass in motionless waves, the color of iron and ash. The animal stood there for a long time, breathing evenly, its chest rising and falling in rhythm with the stillness. Then, the first breath of true night came. It slid across the ground like smoke, carrying a deeper cold. The wolf's breath thickened in the air. Frost gathered along its whiskers. The world darkened, not suddenly, but like a candle dimming one heartbeat at a time. Still no sound came. The wolf blinked once, raised its head higher, and looked toward the horizon, a line so straight it seemed drawn by silence itself. The night was waiting, and in that waiting, the plain held its breath. The wolf stopped where the ground began to slope downward. The plain stretched ahead, flat and endless. A thin line of frost clung to the blades of grass, catching what was left of the light. The sky above it was open, heavy, colorless, so wide it seemed to lean down and press against the earth. The wolf stood still for a long time listening. Nothing moved. Even the wind had gone quiet. The air had that strange quality of depth, as if it could break under the weight of sound. The wolf's ears twitched once, then twice. It lifted its head. Its chest expanded slowly. The breath it drew was visible, a white cloud that rose and stayed suspended before it. The animal's neck straightened, its mouth opened slightly, and then the howl came. It wasn't loud. It didn't rise with power or stretch with force. It began as a low note, almost lost against the cold air. But it carried, long, smooth, deliberate, a single line of sound that did not fade but stretched, traveling far across the plain, changing shape as it went. The grass bent beneath it. The frost on the ground trembled. The horizon itself seemed to waver, as though the air between the earth and sky had softened. The wolf held the note. Its throat vibrated with the effort, its breath steaming in long threads that drifted backward. When the sound finally broke, it didn't end sharply. It simply stopped existing, absorbed by the space it had filled. Then came silence. It was different from the silence before. This one was thicker, heavier, like the air had learned what it was missing and wanted to keep it. The wolf lowered its head again. Its breath came hard now, slow and steady. The muscles along its sides tightened and released, each motion measured. It waited for an answer, but none came. No echo, no wind, no bird call. Even the small hum of a night insects had fallen away. The world had gone hollow, not dead, but expectant. The wolf's ears turned forward again, its eyes fixed on the horizon. A faint shimmer of light still hung there. not from the sun, but from the cold itself. A thin silver edge that separated earth from sky. The animal began to walk. Each step felt louder now. The crunch of frozen soil under its paws echoed inside the silence, deep and full. The sound didn't carry, and it stayed, suspended just above the ground, like frost that never melted. The plain opened before it, wide and pale. The wolf's breath trailed behind it, twisting in the air, and for a long while, nothing else in the world made a sound. The howl had ended, but its shape remained. It hung in the air like a trace of heat, invisible but felt. The plain seemed to hold it, as though the sound had pressed itself into the earth and refused to leave. The wolf kept walking. The wind had died completely. Even the tall grass, usually restless, stood straight and unmoving. Frost clung to its tips, tiny specks of light catching the faint glow of dawn still hidden behind the clouds. The wolf's breath came slow, visible in the cold. Each exhale lingered longer than it should, drifting ahead of its steps before breaking apart. The silence was unnatural, not absence, but tension. Every part of the landscape seemed to listen. The air felt thick, heavy, as if filled with something unseen. The plain had become a vast room with no walls and no sound, only space, dense and waiting. The wolf stopped. Its ears flicked once, turning toward the horizon, then back. Its eyes narrowed. It could hear the faint rhythm of its own heartbeat, the soft shifting of muscle beneath fur. Even the small sound of its paw pressing into the frost came slow, deep, deliberate. The horizon ahead had blurred. It wasn't light or mist, just distance turned soft, as though the air itself had lost its sharpness. The wolf lowered its head, sniffing at the ground. No scent, no trace of prey, no mark of others. Only cold earth, the clean, sterile smell of ice and silence. The sky above remained colorless, its weight pressing low over the land. It was impossible to tell where it ended. The wolf lifted its head again, eyes fixed on that endless gray edge. Its fur caught a faint movement of air. Not a breeze, just the slow contraction of cold shifting upward, like the plain exhaling after too long a breath. Then, stillness again. A leaf of dry grass snapped somewhere behind. Not loud, just real. And the sound went on forever before it stopped. The wolf's ears twitched, but it didn't turn. The sound was not danger, not life, just the world remembering what noise was. The animal began to move again. Its steps fell slower now, heavier. The frost cracked faintly beneath each paw, leaving behind small, perfect prints that filled with white dust. Above, the clouds thickened, their bellies pressed low over the horizon. The light dimmed until everything became one color, pale, silver gray, endless. The wolf walked through it alone and soundless, the plain folding behind it like water without motion. The still air followed, and somewhere far behind the memory of the howl lingered, not as sound, but as shape carved into silence. The cold deepened. The sky hung low and colorless, its light spread thin across the horizon. The ground had hardened during the night. Frost glazed the tops of the grass in dull silver. The wolf's paws pressed into it with small, crisp sounds that disappeared as soon as they were made. Each step left a mark, sharp-edged, perfect, dark, against the pale surface. The tracks stretched behind in a narrow, deliberate line. No wind crossed to blur them. The plain kept every impression, each print holding its shape as if the frost had been waiting for it. The wolf stopped once, looking back. The trail behind it seemed longer than it should, a thread pulled straight through the middle of the world. The horizon on both sides looked the same, a gray curve rising and falling without end. The wolf turned forward again. Its breath came hard now, hanging in the air before falling to the ground like smoke. A thin crust of ice clung to its muzzle, small crystals forming where the air met warmth. The animal shook its head once, slow, and the sound, the soft scatter of frost, carried farther than it should have. The plain gave it back. Not an echo, but a tremor, a brief, shallow movement of air that passed and was gone. The wolf moved on. The frost cracked underfoot, each step marking a rhythm too precise to break. Its shadow followed, stretched thin by the weak light, moving across the uneven ground like a second body. The silence grew denser. It wasn't empty, it had weight. Every sound, each breath, each step, arrived too clearly, as though the world had been stripped of distance. The horizon shimmered faintly. Not heat, it was far too cold, but a distortion of light, a bending of air so fine it looked alive. The wolf slowed. It reached a shallow rise in the land. From there, the plain opened in every direction, flat, endless, untouched. Not a tree, not a rock, not a trace of life. Only its own prints, fading into the gray distance. The wolf stood there, steam rising faintly from its back, its fur rippling in the thin air. It listened. There was nothing. Not even the faint hum of the wind across the grass. The silence had stretched so far it seemed to pull the horizon with it, a long, slow curve of stillness, bending under its own weight. The wolf lowered its head, licked the frost from its muzzle, and began to walk again. Its prints continued forward, unbroken, perfectly spaced, cutting the frozen plain into two halves, one of past, one of waiting, and behind it, the air closed again, leaving the world smooth, soundless, and whole. The frost began to soften. At first it was only a shimmer, the faintest vibration along the ground, a change too small to see. The grass tilted slightly, then straightened again. The horizon trembled once, as if the plain itself had exhaled. Then came the wind. Not loud, not wild, just a slow drift of cold air, sliding across the surface of the earth. It moved without sound, pressing down on the grass, bending it in long, silent waves. The frost caught the motion and broke apart in glittering fragments. The wolf stopped. It stood in the open, the wind brushing its fur backward in even strokes. The movement felt familiar, the first thing in hours, maybe longer, that belonged to the world it knew. The animal lifted its head, its ears turned toward the direction the wind came from. It wasn't carrying scent, no prey, no water, no other life, only distance. But it was movement. The plain stirred again. The light shifted across the ground. The air changed temperature, layering cold over warmth. The sky brightened faintly in one corner, a soft bloom of gray beneath the clouds. The wolf began to walk, its stride lengthened, body lowering slightly, tail swaying behind it in rhythm with the moving air. The grass brushed against its sides with the softest hiss, the first true sound in a long time, so delicate that it almost wasn't one. The wind passed across the prints it had left. It did not erase them, only softened their edges, turning sharp marks into shallow shadows. Each gust came with its own texture, some carrying the chill of ice, others warmer, touched by the scent of dry soil. The wolf turned its head once, watching the horizon shift. The world no longer seemed still, not yet alive, but aware again. It stopped at the base of a low-rise, where the grass grew sparse and the ground turned to hard, pale clay. The wind caught there and curved upward, folding over the hill like water around stone. The wolf's fur rippled with it. It closed its eyes for a moment, listening not with its ears, but through its skin. The air no longer pressed. It moved. The plain breathed again. When the wolf opened its eyes, the light had changed. A faint stripe of pale gold had appeared behind the clouds, thin as a scar, stretching from one edge of the horizon to the other. The wolf looked toward it, then stepped forward once more, its shadow long and soft beneath the half-light. Behind it, the wind whispered through the grass, a slow, unbroken sound, as though the silence itself had begun to thaw. By the time the light had thinned again, the wind had settled into rhythm. It moved across the plain like breath, rising, falling, never rushing, never still. The sky had turned to dull silver, and the earth below reflected it, so that horizon and ground were made of the same pale gray. The wolf walked through it all, a single moving shape against a world that had forgotten motion. Its paws made no sound. Its trail behind was already fading under the steady brush of wind. Then, somewhere in the distance, the air shifted. It wasn't a noise at first, more like a feeling, a faint tremor running through the open space, as though the plain itself had taken a slow, uneven breath. The wolf stopped. Its ears turned sharply, head lifted, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. There was nothing to see, no shape, no movement, only the flat expanse of grass stretching into haze. Then it came. A sound. Faint, stretched thin by distance. Not a second howl, not an answer, but the first one returning. The same tone, the same depth, weakened and hollowed by miles of cold air. It rolled over the plain like smoke, a low vibration that barely touched the ear but moved through the body like weight. The wolf stood still, listening. The echo did not repeat. It came once, then lingered. A hum beneath the silence. A note that seemed to live inside the air rather than above it. The grass around the wolf bent, though no wind had moved. The horizon shimmered faintly again, the line between sky and ground wavering as though the sound itself had bent it. The wolf lowered its head. It began to move forward again, each step slower, more deliberate, its breath visible in the soft light. It didn't look back. Behind it, the echo faded. Not gone, just absorbed, folded back into the stillness that had always been here. The wind picked up again, carrying thin threads of frost through the air. The wolf's fur rippled once, and the faint shimmer of sound that had lingered was replaced by the steady rhythm of its steps. Nothing else moved. The horizon straightened once more. The air, though quiet, still seemed to hum faintly, not with sound, but with the memory of it. The wolf's path led toward the west, where the light dimmed into silver. Its eyes caught the last reflection of day, pale and distant, and for a moment, the plain itself seemed to follow. Morning came without color. The light rose quietly from the east, thin and diffused, spreading across the plain like a sheet of cold glass. The horizon no longer burned with shadow. It was pale, clean, endless. The wolf was still moving. Its steps were slow now, steady, almost soundless. Each paw left a faint print that the wind softened as soon as it touched the ground. The breath from its mouth hung briefly in the air, then broke apart, fading into the same pale gray that filled everything. There was no sound, not even the wind. The air had gone still again, but it no longer felt heavy. The silence was lighter now, not waiting, not holding, just existing. It seemed to stretch forever, a single, unbroken surface of calm. The wolf stopped on a rise where the earth dipped gently downward. From there it could see everything. The long sweep of frozen grass, the thin line of frost sparkling under the faint sun, the distant shimmer where the world curved out of sight. It stood there for a long time. The light caught along its back, outlining the shape of fur, bone, and muscle. Each breath a small movement of shadow. Its eyes reflected the horizon, pale and wide. There was no tension in its body now, no listening, no search. Only stillness. The echo that had once filled the air was gone. The plain had swallowed it completely. Even memory felt distant, as if the sound had never existed, as if the world had always been this way. Silent, breathing, vast. The wolf lowered its head, licked the frost from its nose, and began to walk again. Not toward anything, not away from anything, just forward. The horizon shifted faintly, bending beneath the heat of the light, softening until sky and ground became one color. The wolf's shadow disappeared first. Then its shape began to fade, blurred by the pale air that rose from the warming earth. Within minutes, there was nothing left of it. No sound, no mark, no trail. Only the plain remained, smooth and endless, the silence folded tight across its surface. The wind returned once, passing low across the ground. Not as voice, not as echo, but as a final breath. It brushed the frost into dust and moved on, leaving the world whole again. And when the light reached the farthest edge of the plain, there was no sound at all, only the horizon and the stillness that bent beneath it.